See, that's the approach. And I mean, see, when companies are going public right now, and there is an absolute, I won't use the word excitement, but there's an absolute euphoria, and we'll talk about SME separately. What is the SEBI study indicating? SEBI study is indicating that everybody who's coming into the IPO market, they are coming just to buy the IPO, and it is actually more like a lottery for them. If they get the allocation, they flip it within the week and put that money in the next IPO. Now, that typically means that in the IPO market, the purpose of long-term wealth creation, at least at the retail level and at the HNI level, is not happening, and that in a sense is really defeating the purpose. See, one big change which has happened is that you don't have to wait for like 20 days or 1 month for the IPO allocation. Thanks to SEBI and the systems, IPOs now raise capital and the listing happens in less than a week, in less than 5 trading sessions. Within that, it's easy to understand that you know why this entire flipping process has started. Now, the bad news here is that the IPOs, in the excitement in the IPO market, is something which is an early indicator of a market peak or some kind of an euphoria. The good news here is that at least in the main board, some of these IPOs are still backed by institutional investors, unlike SME, where I think the market in a sense is really not. So one is excitement in terms of the process, and second is price. When the large board, the main IPO market, I won't say that pricing is out of whack, participation is out of whack, and the whole flipping is something which is not something which is very something you can say is the right process to invest in the IPOs. SMEs are separate. I will discuss it, but that's a completely different kettle of fish. Now, this is where the problem is. This is where the real bubble or the trouble is. And after bubble, there's always trouble. And we've been talking about it, that I'm sensing, or we as a channel are sensing, that there is a big bubble and trouble in the SME IPO market. At all levels. First, in terms of disclosures, merchant bankers who are taking these IPOs public, they are not disclosing correct information. B, everybody thinks that it is more like a casino, where you come, you just participate, you get allocation. These stocks, after listing, they have crazy levels in terms of where they open up, and then you essentially are able to flip. See, there is an absolute disregard of business, the nature of earnings, and valuations. And when there is euphoria, and when there is this catch me if you can catch me kind of a syndrome, there is need to exercise caution. There are a lot of merchant bankers which I think are not doing what would be called as the fiduciary duty to really take these companies public. And I think clearly at all level in the SME IPO market, greed is at play. So checks and balances, they really need to be imposed, because this is one end of the market where institutional investors are not there. This is one end of the market where you only have large HNI and a lot of retail participation. And when the cycle will reverse, I think it is going to be a very ugly kind of a scenario, and a lot of so-called investors who call themselves as investors in SME and who are just coming here for price change, they may actually be just holding these stocks for a long period of time without any exit. And I use this analogy that when the music is on, everything is great, but when the music stops, well, then you have to run for the chair, because there would be no vacant spot. And everybody I've spoken to, they seems to be indicating that, okay, this is the way how, this is something which needs to be checked, it needs to be addressed, and I'm glad SEBI is actually doing it. So you need to really have checks and balances at all levels. Merchant banker stroke broker. B, the whole approach in which regulators have been clearing these IPOs, that really process needs to be changed. And C, in terms of participation, which is I would urge our viewers that if you have been lucky in the SME market, if you've been investing in the SME market, it's time to protect your capital rather than trying to invest right now, because it is almost becoming like what would be called as a casino. And guys, capital markets are not casino. Companies that need capital, they come here, The investors who like those businesses, they invest in them. And in the SME market, I think it is almost like, I hate to use the word, almost like a juve kadda now. That is how it is moving.